When dealing with abrasions like this scrape that I have, there's a couple of things that we can actually do to treat this wound. First of all, if you've got yourself a Goliath dressing, which is achieved from killing a Goliath spider and burning him and then harvesting his ash, it's pretty nasty, but that's what you do. You add it with a bandage and you can apply this. As you can see, I can apply it if I want, and it's going to heal your wound in about 50 seconds. It's actually pretty fast. Now, if you don't have a Goliath dressing or you don't want anything to do with spiders, that's fine. If you have honey dressing, you can do this as well. And this is pretty much the gold standard for bandages because it heals just about everything except for poison. Now, this is going to heal your wound in 60 seconds. You can use a regular leaf bandage, but if you go ahead and do that, it's going to heal in about 2 minutes. However, you do have an increased risk of infection. Now, the next two that I'm going to tell you about is the lily dressing and the ash dressing. Now, before you say anything, yes, the lily dressing is used for rashes. You can treat rashes. However, so I ran the same test on the same scrape with all three of these bandages. I tested each one multiple times while timing it just to make sure that I had accuracy. And as you're going to see right here at the very bottom, in order to really judge this, you'll see a little foot icon. And we're seeing a little foot icon with a bandage on it. That's because that's the area of the body that we have a bandage on. And as it slowly starts to get whiter and brighter, starting from the bottom up, you're going to be able to see the progress of that heal. And so now, in the interest of time, I don't want to waste anybody's time. I'm just going to speed up the camera until the end so you can see the results for yourself. And there we go. The ash and the lily bandage both finished about the same time, while, as we expected, the plain bandage continues on. Now, the plain bandage obviously will have a chance of infection and a slower heal rate, whereas the lily bandage and the ash bandage, I received no infections whatsoever on any of the tests that I ran with them. We can apply the dressing, and it's going to take care of that. Like this, you can see. And then right down here, actually, you're going to get a little foot, and it's real faded. However, over time, it's going to fill up brighter white, starting from the toes here at the bottom, and it's going to work its way all the way to the top. Now, that's your indicator for your healing progress right there. So if it was an arm that got bit or had an abrasion, you would see an arm that was bandaged. See, it looks like a foot that's bandaged, and that's how you're going to be able to tell where you're at. We're actually about halfway through as I'm talking right now. And there you go. It's completely healed. If we look at our abrasion, it's gone. Rashes are actually pretty simple. You actually don't need to apply anything here because the body will naturally fight the rash off on its own. However, if you want to speed up the process, you can come into your pack, and if you have a lily dressing, you can apply that. So with infections, there's actually a couple different ways you can handle this. So if we pull up our pack, one way would be to use a honey dressing and apply it, and it'll heal, cure the wound. Second way is if you have access to maggots, you can find them on a corpse that you can harvest the maggots, or if you let meat rot, whether cooked or raw, you can harvest that rotten meat and you will get maggots. Either way, once you have your maggots, you can just apply them. In about a couple minutes, it should go away. Now, as an indicator, if you look to the bottom left corner right above your health bar, you're going to see two indicators. One is a fever. We have a fever because we have an infection. That's going to be ticking down slowly. Also, you're going to see a foot because that's bandaged, and as it's slow and it's grayed out, as it starts to become bright white, slowly you're going to see that progress up and become brighter, starting from the bottom and moving it all the way to the top. That is your progress of healing. So once that is completely full, you know where you are in the healing process with your bandage. Okay, so our indicator went away of our foot. So if we come down here and we look, it is now clean. Now all we got to do is just apply a bandage like we normally would to deal with this. So we can do a Goliath bandage, or you can use a honey dressing, which is going to heal you in about 50 seconds. You can use a normal leaf bandage, and that's going to take about 2 minutes. However, you do have an increased risk of infection, which means you'd have to go through this process all over again. Lacerations are deep cuts that you get from, like, say, being attacked by the jaguar in the jungle. They cause the player to bleed, and if left untreated, you can die from them. Now, there's a couple different ways that we can go ahead and fix this, one of which would be to use a normal bandage. Now, of course, this is going to take the longest, and you do have an increased risk of infection. Now, you can also use something like a honey dressing or an ash dressing, which will decrease your infection chance and heal your wound. The fastest, of course, is to use ant stitches. There's a certain way to go ahead and harvest the ants from the anthill, and you need a torch. Once you have the torch in your hand, just go ahead and approach the anthill, and the ants will not attack you, and you can just harvest the ants from the anthill. Once you have those, you can apply those to the wound, and they'll act as ant stitches. Now, if we get bit, and in this case, we got bit by a rattlesnake, and it gave us 2 stacks of venom. Now, in order to heal this, we're going to want to look for a tobacco plant. Once you find the tobacco plant, go ahead and hit it until you get the leaves right here. Now here we can craft this with a regular leaf bandage, and it'll give us tobacco dressing. Now once we have the tobacco dressing, we can go to the wound. There it is right there, and we can apply that tobacco dressing right there. Now this will treat the venom as well as the wound. We can, however, brew potions, tonics. So let's go ahead and pick up this dart frog. It gives us 8 stacks of poison from picking him up. If we come up here and brew ourselves a tea, we go here and we use the lily dressing first. Use the lily leaves instead of making a lily dressing. It removes 4 stacks per drink. So now we're down to 4 stacks of poison. There's 2 full drinks in this pot. If we drink both, it'll heal both. Okay, so I went and got poisoned again by the same dart frog, and I once again have 8 stacks. Now, if we use the tobacco leaves, which, you know, the tobacco dressing is really good for a bite, and brew this into a tea, it's going to remove 5 stacks. We drink it. As you can see now, we have 3 stacks. I drink it again. It is completely gone. So brewing a tea from either leaves of the lily or leaves of the tobacco plant will either remove 4 stacks of poison or 5 stacks of poison, depending on which leaves you use. However, if you got bit from a spider, a snake, or say a stingray, you still have that wound that you need to treat, and if it's left untreated while you don't have any venom, you could still potentially end up with an infection. Here's a quick tip. Instead of making a bandage out of your molinary leaves, if you instead decide to harvest it, then you'll get fiber. This fiber you can use just like you would with dry leaves or a bird's nest to start a fire.